Wanted to welcome everyone, whoever is jumping on board. We're still a few minutes early. This is really going to be a very much of an open discussion, just to kind of talk about sort of state of the world overall, and how it's affecting our industry. So we want to address that, and one of our guest panelists is Bill. Say hello to everyone.
Hello to
Bill
those who are watching.
comes with a great deal of experience in this field. He's worked for, well, you know what? I'm not going to talk about Bill's. Let Bill talk about his own experience. I just want to introduce all the panelists and kind of quickly go through sort of a short agenda, and it's going to be really much of an open conversation. Alex Rodoff will be joining us momentarily also.
Alex
You
is
might
on, but
see.
not with video yet.
Okay. So Alex will pop in with the video. Actually, it looks like I'm in San Francisco, but I'm really am not. I'm in beautiful Rockaway, New Jersey, and it's certainly not this view out of my window. I am kind of high up, but definitely not seeing the bridge. But I figured that may be a nice, cheery background. Um, so we'll wait for Alex to join us. Well, with the video anyway. Alex is. We kind of want to break up the conversation. Maybe Bill will talk about sort of the process, methodology, training, and Alex can talk to some of the tools that are available to us for these sort of challenging times. And what I'm talking about specifically is, I guess, the theme of this roundtable is how do you reprioritize your portfolio and project during these times? And the questions that we're all asking ourselves: what if my portfolio needs to be cut in half? Which projects do you keep? Which projects do you let go? And maybe that's something that Bill can talk to. And then what are the tools that are available to you out there? And how do you evaluate the portfolio? What type of reporting you can turn to kind of look at that. So why don't I do this? Why don't I? And we are they're meant to be short webinars, and please join us every week. If you haven't, so we'll send you a reminder again. Our goal is to have different panelists every week, and primarily to talk about the on a high level. So this will be a theme, but we could certainly change the subject matter. And as I said, it's only 30 minutes, so I don't want to occupy too much time just talking. So I'm going to hand it over to Bill maybe first, so maybe
Okay,
he can address some of these questions and definitely talk about your background.
good. My name is Bill Gannon Meyer. My background is I'm a former naval officer. I've managed projects for about 30 years. I got an MBA, worked in telecommunications, IT. I did federal work, and I did a lot of work in upstream and downstream oil and gas. Um, for the sake of the people on the call, I'll share my screen with you guys right now. And then I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. A classic way that most people will tell you to work if you're looking at a portfolio or looking at any um, thing is the BCG matrix, where you have looking at the market growth and looking at the market share. So if it's high growth, then you have a high share, it's called a star. If it's a low growth, but you have a high share, it's called a cash cow. If you have a small market share, but it's a fast growing, you don't know. And if it's in a you have a low market share and a low growth, they call it a dog. And the classic is shoot for the stars, get rid of the dogs, milk the cows, etc. I don't actually subscribe to this methodology, but if you're looking at a portfolio, you can look at what dimensions um, of the what dimensions of the projects should you actually look at. The key, um, I'm sorry, I'm getting pinged by Teams. I'm going to close off Teams now. Um, you might want to look at Teams, Yuri. Alex has got a couple messages. I recommend that Alex stay on board. The way I look at a new situation is I use a thing called a Z model. In the Z model, what you would do is you would start with the facts of the situation. And in any situation like we're in today, with a rapidly changing market, I do a lot of work in oil and gas. And in oil and gas, we've got a situation where we have the price falling out at the same time that we have the COVID B going on. So for some of us, we have multiple situations going on at the same time. And what we want to do first, before we make a decision, rather than go with our gut, we gather the facts to see what are the facts of the situation that we're in. Then, after we understand the facts of the situation, do gathering of ideas about the situation. Then, after you have a set of ideas from your brainstorming, you go into a numeric or a logical evaluation of what can we do with with resources that we have, what can we do with the situation of the environment that we're in, and where should we go forward. And then the last thing, which normally is forgotten by a lot of organizations, is what is the impact on the stakeholders to our organization? What is the human impact of it? So there's some things, if we shut down a project, we'll lose subject matter expertise, or we'll lose staff that we may want to use in the new world that's coming up. Um, if we go to simple rules of thumb, which are always good to improve decision making, never consider sunk costs as you're looking at your portfolio of projects. Don't think about how much you've already spent. How much you've already spent is irrelevant. What's relevant is to look at how much money you'll receive in the future, or what benefit you'll receive in the future, versus what revenue or what expense you'll have in the future. So how much more money am I going to have to spend to get the deliverable, and what can I get out of that deliverable? Also, be very careful when the whole environment of a project changes, or the economic environment in which you're living changes. Make sure that you don't look at your previous assessment of value as if it hasn't changed, because the market has changed, the environment has changed. It means the value will have changed for the products that you're looking at producing with your projects. I believe that one should always consider what can be finished quickly. What quick wins can we get? So rather than just looking at benefit, if we can get something done quickly to get it off the table, that's something that should be done. And then consider what can be shelved rather than shutting down a project or closing it off permanently. Consider shelving it. And when you consider shelving it, you have to look at the question of how much will it cost to shelve it, and how much will it cost to take it off the shelf. I had friends who had an oil rig that was a brand new oil rig, and when the price of oil dropped, they put it out in a field to sit, but they didn't maintain it while it was in the field. It was in the field for just a couple of years, and then they needed to use it again, but they found when it was time to use it, there was a huge expense for them in putting it back in service. If they had put it on the shelf properly, if they had shut it down properly and covered it from the elements, etc., it would have cost them a lot less money. You should also look at what do we want to be in the new future that's coming down the road. If we look at the environment, we can make predictions about what's going to happen in the future. For example, with COVID-19, we may not be in a lockdown in 6 weeks, but COVID-19 will likely still be making its rounds through communities. Maybe not as fast, maybe not as badly, but we need to consider the new environment, and therefore, because of the new environment, we have to change our habits permanently. Going forward, things personally like hand washing, but in terms of our business, there may be some businesses that have some projects that our customers will no longer consider interesting or likely in the new environment. And then always practice situational awareness. And I believe situational awareness uses the same thing that I discussed earlier with the Z model of gather the facts, what are the ideas, considering the facts, what can I calculate about those ideas, and what's the impact on people. So that's a couple of ideas I had, Yuri. Um,
Yeah, that was great insight, Bill, and I think very, very timely. And just again, I urge everyone, please, this is, and I think if the groups stay small, we'll probably for the next week, we'll switch it to a meeting environment. We're in a webinar environment. So unfortunately, not only the panelists can speak, but we do urge the rest of you do ask questions in the chat. And at this point, I'd like to hand the microphone over to Alex. You know, Bill covers some of the very, very interesting and timely concepts. And maybe Alex can share with us, you know, and again, Alex comes with a lot of experience from the project management platforms and tools. He's a Microsoft MVP. He's also a Scrum Master. So he's very familiar not only with Microsoft platform, but really with all the platforms out there. We are as a company, you know, tend to be very platform agnostic. So to us, it's all about the approach, the method, the methodology, and really how do you truly manage project and programs. So let me, without further ado, hand it over to Alex. So maybe he could talk about some of the tools and reporting that's available to us today.
Wow, Yuri, this is such an introduction. I don't know if I will be able to keep up with that benchmark of yours that you put up. You put the board so high. I have to keep up then. Let me just based on your smile, I can understand that you can hear me. Okay, right? Okay, great. Yeah, and this is one of those days when I don't want to share my camera, so I hope you won't be too offended with that. So it's a great format, and this is something new. We're trying to have it more of a conversation, and we're going to have more panelists from the field. From different industries that are facing the same issue with COVID-19. Projects are closing, new projects are starting. This vehicle that's supposed to process the new ideas and push the existing projects forward. This known mechanism called, project management office, or the process that is taking care of that process, taking care of this project, is very much under test right now. So a lot of sizable companies and smaller companies are trying to quickly reassess what's going on. And Bill, I actually have a question for you. Because back in one of my certifications, one of my classes that back in the day I took at NYU was extreme project management, and a lot of that was built or basically copied from military processes of absorb and react and orient. There's like aviation terms that are being used. So, and this is basically setting up the readiness structure, the readiness framework for things to happen all of a sudden that we're not prepared for. It's almost the discussion about unknown unknowns, right?
Yes. Well, what's strange about the current situation with COVID-19 is that the response, if you do risk management planning, this is something that should have been on your list. It was actually on my list, right next to hurricanes and disability. I actually was thinking that it would be like something like the swine flu or the avian flu when I did a risk analysis for my family in 2009. And so we were already prepared for this pandemic. So there are certain fundamentals of risk will carry through, but this is this for most people in most situations is a unknown unknown.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like this, if we quickly just talk about the risk management practice or the process group.
Yeah.
Yeah. We when we talk about unknown unknowns, it's something that we account for. It's just in any of the risk assessments on any of those portfolios, I can probably with a great level of certainty say that the value of that risk wasn't enough. No one could predict it, right? So if you would put
Nobody could predict shutting down all air traffic
right.
for what's it been, a month.
Mhm.
I mean, we had previously shut down, I think all air traffic was shut down before for like 14 days after 9/11. And then I can't remember how long it was shut down after 9/11.
Yeah.
But so because it had occurred within our lifetime, it should be something we thought of, but we hadn't thought of this one. This one's unique in that the shutting in of people and the closing down of the transportation. That's pretty strange.
Yeah. So if we look at the bigger picture for a second, right? If we look at here's the overall business process, and here's, let's just say, customers, here's the products or services, and here are the other operations and everything. And basically, PMO is usually responsible for either new projects or business transformation type of projects, or any other projects that are basically moving the business forward. And obviously, that it's in many cases it's clear which projects are going to be, well, let's just say, canceled for now or postponed or on hold, right?
Yeah.
And it's also obvious that based on the new information, obviously we received a lot of new information, and not just from the virus perspective, but from the, how the economy is reacting to everything. So all this new information coming from, how the stock market is reacting, how the customers are reacting, how the consumer behavior is reacting, how everything is reacting, and it obviously making all the business leaders to start thinking about what are those new projects, what are those new opportunities that were not there, a month ago, that we should be looking at, meaning that it will be a flood of new projects. And hopefully when the economy, and I like this word, bounces back, right? Because it's not really natural sink, it's not really natural deterioration of the economy. It's really based on this factor that we hopefully is going to be mitigated soon, and it will naturally will bounce back.
Well, let me show you a picture um, that
But
I
like I
use.
yeah, while you're pulling this picture, but let me just finish the thought. Like I said to my colleagues and friends here, the world is never going to be the same, and fortunately or unfortunately, we're all we're all matured enough in business and in life, and we understand that it's going to be okay. We're going to be all good. It's just the world is never going to be the same.
Yeah,
Meaning,
it's not. Our parents went through worse.
well,
My father always told the story of sitting on top of the family's possessions when he was 6, and they were thrown out of the house during the Great Depression. That's probably not going to happen to me. If what you were talking about earlier, what we've had is there's been a major change in the external environment in which all projects and organizations exist in our global economy. And so because of that change, it's going to change things in the organizational environment, no matter how we slice it. even if you're in a relatively safe industry that's either already all on a line or you're working for the government, the organization will change. And that's going to have an impact on organizational strategy. But the new
Right.
environment is also going to create all sorts of opportunities that we just don't know what they are yet. Because for one, following that Z model that I said, we don't know what all the facts are. And so it's very important for managers, especially project managers, to gather the facts first prior to, you can't have all the facts because we always must make decisions and consider, conditions of uncertainty. But then we look at our program and the portfolio of projects that we have, and we have to assess what's going to work in the new environment, what's not, what's going to work with the new organizational strategy and what's not. Because that's the first question that's going to affect or be asked by our bosses when they start thinking about it is, so what do we get rid of and why, and what are we going to do in the new environment?
Yeah. So well, I'm glad you brought this picture because basically, if you look at this and you may say, yeah, that looks good, right? It makes sense. The next question that comes up, well, how do I actually do that, right? How do I turn this from, yeah, it would be nice to talk about benefits. It would be nice to capture the organizational strategy. That would be nice to lay out those opportunities on some kind of
Or
document.
to see multiple projects, these little stacks here. I can't even visualize multiple projects on my little PowerPoint.
And you can probably, like any person can visualize certain things when they see them, right? When you're exceeding number of things in front of you, it's for any human brain is hard to visualize, and that's why we start looking at some technical solutions, right? And
exactly.
And at this time of age, the technical solutions are going to be the key for a lot of organizations. And here's the major point that I'm bringing here is let me actually share some of this. I'm gonna do a lot of demoing or anything. We've kind of running out of time a little bit.
Yeah, we should see if anybody has any questions. I just sent a chat. If you're not familiar with the Zoom environment, you can display the chat by clicking on the little thing that looks like a
I wonder, do you see my screen?
Yes, sir. We see your screen.
So and this is one of the examples, and it's not a super complicated model, but the idea is that when you have like small operations and 2, 3, 4 projects, 10 projects, you don't probably need you don't even Excel even file to keep all this, in your mind and everybody's mind in terms of, oh, do we need this project? Do we need that project? How much are we going to spend on these projects? But it's very quickly going out of hand when you don't have really a centralized process of how you go through this process of thinking about the strategy, running your projects, going back to benefits, and and repeat this cycle so you stay on track of your strategy, especially when the new information comes in every day, right? I just talked to my mortgage broker. He goes, the business is dead for the mortgages, for the mortgage brokers. No one is buying houses because everybody furloughed, for the payments and the mortgages. So, I mean, that was kind of, I suspected that, but we're just learning new things. The economy reacting, and more information is coming in. So, the those organizations who are capable of going through this process, through all these boxes, through all this process that you just saw from Bill's screen, benefits and prioritization and numbers and budgets, the quicker you can go through this process on a daily basis, the more you'd be able to align your portfolio to the actual reality, to the actual strategy that you're trying to implement. So new projects come in, the old projects get canceled, which projects come in, which projects should be canceled. All these decisions should be based on some sort of a methodology and be very systematic and consistent as far as methodology. Again, conditions are changing outside, but the way you can assess the strategy and align the projects to the strategy, that is something that you can use with tools. And if organization is capable of going through this process quickly, not like it used to be, oh yeah, we're gonna within the next few weeks. I like this phrase very much, right? Oh, within the next few weeks, we're going to look into the portfolio of projects and run through the analysis. What does it mean? I mean, for anyone who's been in a fairly large organization, it means that, okay, you're talking about months of nothing going to get done, basically. No decisions are going to be made because there's lack of data, there's tons of excuses not to make that decision. So, but if you're pressured to actually make that decision, if you don't have a framework available, then you're going to have to spend a lot of time figuring this out.
And the utility of the tool is that the tool isn't sitting on somebody's laptop, and when they go to sleep at night, nobody else can see it or talk about it. It's sitting in a central repository where multiple people can work on the set of projects, or multiple project managers can update their projects within the same tool, so that the higher level managers can have a view of that whole stack of projects, right?
Yeah. And again, if I break down the complexity, technology, and process into 100% of that, and say 100% of complexity, where do I put the tool in the process? The tool is like, I don't know, 5% complexity. The tool, I mean, you can get the tool in a day, okay? So you can have your hundreds of your projects being put into a tool like this in a matter of a couple of days, with all the metadata whatsoever, and start analyzing. You don't have to have rigor risk management process. You don't have to have rigor in your, I don't know, estimation process. I mean, if you already have things on your plate, and if whether this is Jira, whether this is Microsoft, whether this is anything else, if you have your budget numbers, if you have your line items in your project portfolio, and you're trying to understand how these line items, these buckets of money, are aligned with COVID-19 changes to everything that is going on, then you should be able to put the simple framework in place and start running through the cycle: benefits, strategy, portfolio, benefit, strategy, portfolio. Should run these cycles and understand, okay, that makes sense. Let's put this project on hold. These projects that are coming up, and I'm just gonna give you a quick glance into these new ideas. How do we divert from that bullet that is coming up of COVID-19? How do we address that? Collect all the ideas from whatever 1,000 employees or 100 employees you have, or 10 employees you have, right? You can collect all these ideas and run through cycles of benefits analysis and pick the right ones. Because a lot of times people have great ideas, but they're not going through the process, and they're just sitting there and no one knows about them. So I guess I really wanted to show that there are a bunch of these different analytics and tools. And again, at this point, I'd like to stress the fact that it doesn't have to be a specific technology. You can technically even do this on Excel, but you have to have certain process the way you go about this projects. Because I mean, if you have a few of them, that's fine. You can probably talk to them and have these 2 slides in front of anyone and talk about it. But if you have hundreds of them and the operations are larger, then the system needs to work for you. Yeah, one question I was going to ask you, Bill, about the military experience. That based on the time that we have to react on things, and from the military experience too, you don't have a lot of times you don't have much time to react or prepare for an action that you need to do in order to resolve certain situation, right? Your enemy may not be giving you that time, right? You have to react very quickly. So what are those specific techniques maybe we can apply to the portfolio management? I'm just giving you like.
In terms of portfolio management, I mean, if you look at the military paradigm, of course, is train, train, train. And they get to the point where you already know, you have like a muscle memory for most of the actions that you have to take. In navigating a ship, there was a situation in navigation where if it looks like you're going to run into something, the acronym was CBDR, constant bearing, decreasing range. And when you when you were like piloting the ship or driving the ship, if somebody said that, you knew exactly what to do immediately. Now, in a situation where you have something completely unexpected happen to you, you have to assess the situation very rapidly and look at the facts as they exist, because the reaction will sometimes hurt you more than thinking about it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or in the case of a business organization, thinking about it for a day. I really do believe that one should have the facts in hand, unless it's something, I mean, unless it's a true military situation where something's coming in at you, a constant bearing, decreasing range.
I'm sorry to break in. I just want to do a time check. We're running a little bit
It's
over.
13:32 right
And
now.
there is a couple of things I wanted to say. First of all, I should have done this earlier, but I wanted to launch a quick poll just to get a sense of some of the subjects that we should be focusing on going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It is an anonymous poll, so you guys can go ahead and take the poll. And, take your time. I'll give you, I guess, probably, 30 seconds or a minute to see if we can answer that. Really appreciate your input. It would be good to know what we should be focusing on.
So it's interesting that the Common Data Service, the CDS, I almost read CDC. Thank God.
Yeah, thanks.
So just to echo, while everybody's responding to this, just to echo what Bill said, I think the real lesson that I can translate into the portfolio management and project management is preparation and training. I guess the more we operate under the concepts of known unknowns, risks management, understanding that anything can happen, right? The projects a lot of times go wrong. A lot of times, there's interest in CDC. Sorry, CDS. See, just did it to myself. A lot of times the preparation and be able to run and quickly adjust large amounts of projects to a new strategy. I think that is a very useful tactics.
And there's some tactics that you can do in project management terms. They talk about identifying risks and analyzing risks and then planning risk responses. Or in the ISO language, ISO talks about treating risks. There's some strategies you can take that are good for any risk almost. For example, cross-training of staff so that your staff have multiple skills. That helps you with 8 different types of risks or more. I call it the hurricane closet for those of us who live in a hurricane place, to have extra food stocked up in your house in case there's a hurricane and the grocery store is shut down. That helps you with all sorts of situations. So the same thing works on your projects and within your business. There will be some strategies that you can adopt that will be helpful all types of situations. Going to the folks who went to the web a while ago and started doing online, working online or using the online versions of things, they're feeling happy right now because they don't have to train their staff how to work remotely. Yuri, you want to talk about the
yes, what I actually would want to talk about is the upcoming webinars. The guest panelists in the upcoming webinars next week is from the transportation industry, specifically fleet management. And then the following week, we have someone from the healthcare. So I did post a link into the chat. If you have not registered yet, you can register to all upcoming webinars. And they're running every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern time between now and the rest of the, I guess, until the end of May, and we may extend that. So please use that link, invite anyone that you know. We're also going to post a YouTube link from our channel with the replays of this webinar. They will be available. Share it, like us. We can bring you more content, and whatever we could do for the community. Right now, we're doing as much as we can, pitching in. We're providing free team support for some of you out there that need to work remotely. So anything we could do, please reach out to us, and we could certainly, I mean, we're all in this together.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thank you all, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon. Bye.